Be agreed to. I call the member for Riverina.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Let's just put some facts on the table and some common sense into this debate, unlike the member for Moreton's contribution. So let's talk about what we did in our decade of government. 220,000 trade apprentices. That was a record high, member for Moreton, record high. 1,213 major transport projects supporting 100,000 jobs. And I say that because when you build homes, when you look through state government planning laws and help out with councils, you need to have the supportive infrastructure. And that's what we did. And what did Labor do when they came to government? Well, they put a 90-day review, code for delay, into all the infrastructure projects. It ended up being more than 200 days, and that stymied so much of the development and activity in that space. 135,000 new home projects backed by HomeBuilder, and I compliment the member for Deakin in his role as a minister. Now, of course, he's the shadow minister in this portfolio space. And the member for Moreton talked about dog whistling by the member for Hughes. I think that was crass, but let's look at the facts, shall we? Immigration hit an all-time high of 765,900 people last year. Total immigration numbers have hit another all-time high of 100,000 new arrivals this February alone. Now, if you feel that that's a big numbers, well, consider in the Howard era, Australia averaged 110,000 arrivals a year. So 110,000 a year compared to 100,000 just in February alone. Now, what is that doing to the housing market? Well, I'll tell you what it's doing. It's placing that much unnecessary pressure. And it's the housing market mainly in metropolitan Australia. It's the housing market mainly in the east coast of Australia, where most Australians live. And Labor is not doing anything to address that, but what they are doing is that they are very, very worried by the prospect of the Greens looking at taking them down a path they don't want to go, and that is taking over the state's responsibility to provide social housing. And I really genuinely fear what might happen after the next election, whatever that might be, whether it's later this year, whether Labor starts to panic and hits the double dissolution trigger, or whatever the case might be, or whether it's in May next year when it is due, whether they will potentially, if the numbers fall the way they shouldn't, form a very, very dangerous alliance with the Greens, because an Albanese-backed government would not be good for this nation. We've seen construction companies collapse in this nation. They continue to fall like dominoes. And that's not my words, that's the Property Investor from 17th of January 2024. The trend only worsens in the second half of 2023, worsening then, and around 100 more Victorian homeowners are in limbo as another builder falls, the report relayed. Now, according to the Housing Industry Association, the construction market's facing one of the worst storms since the energy crisis in the mid-70s. What we're seeing is construction companies going to the wall day after day after day. And if they're not going to the wall, they are, as Dennis Family Homes started to do in late 2022, and that is curtail regional activities. A range of factors have created the perfect storm for the demise of builders in the country. Lawyer Jennifer Dyson told ABC News she works with the commercial litigation insolvency firm Hicks, Oakley, Chessel and Williams. And she said a large number of builders have faced economic distress due to significant increases in interest rates and cost of materials, labour shortages and supply chain issues. And of course, she is so right. And I know that whether it's in the housing construction business or indeed infrastructure business of construction, it is just so hard. We've seen recently Stevens Construction, based on the New South Wales Central Coast. It has unfortunately been forced to stop work effective immediately. That was just last month. And Australia continues to battle through its worst phase for the construction industry in 50 years. In 50 years, and it's on Labor's watch. What is Labor doing about it? Well, they're talking about everything but. They only realised there was a cost of living crisis last year after the Voice referendum was defeated. They come to this place, they talk about everything that regional and middle Australia don't want them to talk about, get your heads in the game, and the game is housing and making sure that we address the cost of living crisis.
The question is that the